What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Motorola Moto G Power 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Moto G Power 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 405, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the A23 5G, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz PLS LCD display. This phone also has a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 400, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So in most ways, these displays are pretty much the same. The only real difference is that with the A23 5G, at 6.6 inches versus 6.5 with the Moto G Power 5G, it is a little bit larger, but honestly, the difference is really not that huge. And in general, both displays here are great. The 1080p resolutions are going to give us nice, sharp images. So if you're doing stuff like watching videos, for example, where you want the image quality to be a bit better, either phone will be great for that. And with 120Hz refresh rates, the movement on the screen with each phone is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making them feel more premium to use. So overall, if you are looking for a more affordable 5G phone that has a nice display, either phone will be a great choice. Now for storage, with the Moto G Power 5G, we're getting 256GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the A23 5G, we're getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. Now, first of all, I do want to point out, this phone in my hand is the factory unlocked version of the Moto G Power 5G that you do get through Motorola, and if you do end up getting this phone through a US carrier, I'm pretty sure it's not going to have 256. It might maybe have 128. But last year, the Moto G 5G, which is, I guess, this phone's predecessor, that phone did have 256 too, at least factory unlocked. But then through like Cricket, for example, that version was down to 64, so definitely keep in mind, the 256 we get with this phone is from the factory unlocked version. That being said though, 256 versus 64 is quite a difference. So if you do want a lot of storage, the Moto G Power 5G in general will have a huge advantage. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both also have fingerprint scanners right here on the power keys. But starting with the Moto G Power 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the A23 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you could see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the Moto G Power 5G, we got a real nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. With the A23 5G, up front, we got a water drop notch for the selfie camera. This camera has 8 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, both phones have real good camera setups, but with the A23 5G, we do get an ultra wide camera, whereas unfortunately, the Moto G Power 5G, despite having a macro camera at least, doesn't have an ultra wide camera. So if you do want an ultra wide camera, the A23 5G will have an advantage, but otherwise, they're pretty much the same. To give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Moto G Power 5G. Overall, definitely great quality here, and I feel like for the average user, there's pretty much nothing this camera's not going to be good enough for, except obviously having an ultra-wide camera because it doesn't have one. But aside from that, I do think it does take really good photos, so if you're taking the occasional photo for like Instagram, for example, you don't need to go spend $1,000 on a super high-end flagship phone. You could just get something like this, and it will get the job done just fine. And then here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, and overall I feel like between the two, the photo quality is really not that much different. So in general, if you are looking for a phone that has a nice camera, you really won't go wrong with either phone here, so for the average user, both phones are great choices. So really, again, it just comes down to whether or not you want an ultra-wide camera, because if you do, the A23 5G obviously will be the one to go with, but if you don't really care about that feature, the Moto G Power 5G is going to be perfectly fine too. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Moto G Power 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 930 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. Now in general, both phones do have real good performance for what they are. Again, keep in mind these are definitely not high-end phones by any means. They are definitely more affordable entry-level phones, but despite this, for basic daily activities as well as more moderate things like some light mobile gaming and things like that, the performance on these phones is actually surprisingly surprisingly good. That being said though, between the two, the Moto G Power 5G is maybe not a lot, but at least a little bit faster. So if you do want the faster device between the two, maybe you're going to be on your phone a bit more, then definitely keep this in mind. I did run a benchmark test on each phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So again, as you can see, between the two, the Moto G Power 5G has a bit of an advantage, but it's not really like a huge amount. It's like, if you're going to be on your phone a ton, then you will notice a bit. Things are going to be a bit smoother and stuff like that. But honestly, with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, things are going to run for the most part perfectly fine on this phone too. So either way, if you do want a decently fast phone, but you don't want to spend $1,000 on a flagship phone, either phone here will be a great alternative. For the batteries, both phones have 5,000 mAh batteries, with the Moto G Power 5G supporting 15-watt fast charging, and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G supporting 25. So definitely great batteries here. With a 5,000 mAh battery, you can expect to get some great battery life and longevity. So if you're in a situation where maybe you're not always around a charger, but you still need to use your phone all day, either phone here will be great for that. And then of course, down the road, as the battery degrades, which all batteries do, you're not going to notice it nearly as quickly as you would with a much smaller battery. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a longer time without having to replace it, either phone will be a great choice here. For the software, both phones do have Android 13, so definitely great to see. For software support, I know for a fact the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is going to get several other major updates beyond this, so this phone should be getting Android 14, 15, and 16. And with the Moto G Power 5G, I'm not 100% sure, but I know Motorola's software support, at least for their 5G phones, has been getting a lot better in the past year or so. So this phone will probably end up getting at least Android 14, if not maybe 15. But if you really want the best software support, I would personally still go with the Samsung. And then as far as other features go, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, keep in mind, you can use that feature with these phones no problem. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? Now in general, these phones are really similar, and honestly, there's not really an insane difference between the two. If you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has decent performance, a good camera, a large battery, the newest software, and features like NFC, either phone will fill that role just fine. That being said though, with the Moto G Power 5G, this phone has quite a bit more storage, and again, it is a little bit faster, whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, the display is ever so slightly larger. In the long run, the software support is probably going to be a bit better. And again, it does have an ultra-wide camera, whereas unfortunately, the Moto G Power doesn't. But aside from those differences, again, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone, either phone here is really going to be a great choice. But this concludes my comparison between the Motorola Moto G Power 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.